Relative to the cover-up, it obviously started pretty quickly because you were told to sign an abbreviated, sanitized statement that put you far enough away from the craft that it could be interpreted as hallucination or reflections or something like that. Other than the exchange you had when that sanitized, abbreviated statement was prepared, were you ever interrogated as to the details of what you saw?
That's interesting. The only time I consciously remember being interviewed, that's a nice way to put it, at the OSI building was on, I believe it was the Monday after the incident. The incident happened on a weekend, and I believe it was Monday or Tuesday when I was called in there. I remember that, and that's writing out my statement and all that. But under hypnosis in 1994, it's apparently around February 1st of that year, it was noted in the hypnosis that I was taken back into the OSI building, or it could have been the wing intel, I'm not sure, and also interrogated at that point again. And that one was where I was administered sodium pentothal, which is a very graphic thing to watch on film. And additional questions were asked, and additional discoveries were made.
Why, personally, do you think there was an interest in cover-up?
Well, there's, I think, John alluded to it a little bit earlier. I think part of the problem they were drawn into the area. This object was drawn there because there was interest in the area, and the interest has to do with a top secret facility, which I later wrote security plans for and stuff at that base, which was Rendlesham Heath. It was a C3 facility, communications, and it had a building there that at the time had a retinal eye scanner. In 1980, that's like high-tech stuff, and you don't really waste your money, the government's money, on those kind of things over there like that. But that was the unusual part of it, so there was operations within there, and they were civilian, by the way. None of those people were wearing uniforms. And then just down the street from that, another mile and a half or two, was MI6, British intelligence that operated out of there. And then, of course, we had the control towers that were strategically placed around the base, too, that operated radar systems and the communications. It's also a part, and I think John should talk a little bit about, if you don't mind talking a little bit about Cobra Mist. You want to talk about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this is documented. It's on the internet. Before our incident, there was a project called Cobra Mist. I don't know if any of you are aware of it, but it was over the horizon radar. The Russians had their project called Woodpecker, and there was activity going on between both sides trying to counteract this particular technology. What's interesting is, and it's posted right in the why it was shut down, was when they posted Cobra Mist on the coast. And by the way, the NSA had a facility there with Cobra Mist. Was the fact that it didn't work properly. They brought in the Stanford Research Institute to find out why it didn't work properly. Okay, what they determined was that there was something coming from inside the country that was keeping it from working properly. They had spent a lot of money on this project, and they just shut it down almost immediately after that. But the thing was, the people that work on Cobra Mist, civilians and military, and the Stanford Research Institute never left. They were moved on to Bentwaters, Woodbridge, and at Rendlesham Heath. So what appears to happen was whatever they were working on at the time, they came to realize something else was going on in the area. And they continued to work forward with whatever project they were working on. at the time.
There obviously had to be a lot of discussion about what had happened there. There are three fairly obvious possibilities. One was it was an experimental something we were doing, it was something the Soviets were doing, or it was extraterrestrial. Which of those was the general consensus?
For the rest of the base?
Sir?
You mean for what the rest of the
Well,
base?
yeah, there had to be a lot of discussion as to what went
No.
on out there.
No,
Things
the-
were shut down.
The discussion was limited. Anybody that was in the know was told it was classified. You don't talk about it. Anybody that wasn't in the know talked about it.
How quickly were you told that?
That was the morning.
It started almost immediately with the shift commander
Oh,
and
that too.
continued on with the fact. And also one other note that we confirmed through the controller who was in charge of writing up the reports that day, all the documents were immediately classified secret.
Yes.
And what's interesting is CNN, Chuck DeCaro, special assignments reporter, attempted to do a report on the incident. And when he asked for the incident reports and the 1569s and the blotter entries on this, you want to know what his answer was given to him?
Yeah.
They disappeared. They're lost. Somebody took them. We don't know where they are.
Okay. Did they give you any indication why they were classifying it?
Let me give you additional
One last
couple
question.
minutes.
Any
No, it's
indication
okay.
why they
Take
were
your time.
classifying it?
No, at the time, I mean, you got to remember 1980, we were young airmen. Today, we have a general idea why it was probably
Well, it's
classified.
because they wanted to cover it up as a general consensus.
I
Now,
think
at that
it-
time, they had to have some explanation why you classify it.
No,
Security?
we were not in the need to know. We didn't have the
Okay,
clearance level
okay,
or
thank
the authority to, ask why. We were told to shut up and color.
Some of the other evidence that was taken, I would assume would be taken by General Gabriel, was in the wing command post. It's a hardened shelter on Bentwaters, our control center for up-channeling, helping hands, covered wagons. These are code words for security reports, down-channel reports, DEFCON 3s, those kind of things. They have at the time, a reel-to-reel, and they would record all of the radio transmissions on our 4 channels. I believe we had 4, a command net and I think a LE net and a couple others. And they would record all that. Those things, like that's a smoking gun. That actually had our radio transmissions and what was transpiring over the net. Those were taken. The 1569, which is a complaint and incident report, which is, once you make a blotter entry, it's a more detailed report that you write out from your notes, and that would go on record. But we were told by the senior controller, and that was Sergeant Coffey, that those were immediately pulled from CSC, Central Security Control, for and classified secret. So that was another step toward the containment efforts to have it quieted down and some more misdirection. I'm still holding off on the cover-up. I really am biting at the bit on that one.
You've done that pretty well, but you just mentioned another opportunity to discuss something, and I didn't write it down, so I'm kind of, what else did I said I was going to yield back to you to ask. You asked, are we going to talk about?
Cover up.
He said cover up, but he also said a second one. No?
I don't think so.
Okay, still cover up. You're not
Well,
really,
Well, here, when we're told everything's classified, and anybody else that was involved, it's classified, don't talk about it. And that, we take that seriously, and protect our country's interest. Then they decided to make cover stories. And, the brilliance of the United States Air Force in cover stories, I love it. They said that it was alien. They said it was ET related. They said they had floating stuff, and all this other stuff was said. It was a UFO, and with little green men, basically. That's what they said it was. So,
was it?
absolutely not. It was a craft of unknown origin. I wasn't able to determine the origin of the craft. When it comes down to investigations, ma'am, we take our job seriously. We only report the facts as we see them. There's no conjecture. We have other people that can look at those things, assess the situation. My main threat, my main issue I had that night after, well, I knew it wasn't an aircraft crash. I just said that because we lost contact with a bogey about 15 minutes prior to them reporting it and getting me to the gate. So I was I was thinking it was more of a security situation out there. And we had around 160, I believe it was 6 squadrons of A-10 tank killers there. We had 10,000 people working on that base live there. We had munition storage, sensitive weapon systems. We had C3 facilities. We had part of the Cobra Mist team that we can't go in those areas. And we had other mission requirements that still remain classified today. And my job was to ascertain if it was a threat to the security, the war-making capability of that base. That was what I was doing out there. So everything we put in a report is not, it's all facts. We don't allude to, even though I must admit, I knew this thing wasn't like in the James Book of known aircraft. I said it had to be some kind of technology that was beyond what we could produce at the time. I mean, yeah, those thoughts went through my mind. But do I report it as such? No. No, I stuck to the facts.
The facts that you saw something not normal in
Not
your
normal.
training and your experience, and you wrote that in a 3 or 4 page memo, what you saw and what you experienced.
I wrote that in my statement, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What you gave to the wing commander was something less than that.
Yes, and I felt really guilty about that.
About giving the other one or
Well,
writing the first one?
there's a loyalty thing going on here too. I mean, I'm under orders, but that's my wing commander. That's my base commander. I have an obligation always to protect them and to follow their orders and not tell them anything that's not true. And here I have orders from at the OSI building saying you're going to go ahead and give this statement to your command element or anybody else that asks about it. I lived with that for about 31 years, and I had the opportunity to talk to Major General Williams, Gordon Williams, and that was one of the things I brought up, and he says, don't worry about it, following orders. He says, I know how it was, I know what happened, I understand you weren't treated fairly, he says. I'm here, what do you need from me?
Okay, let's hold that one right there. Your point's well taken, and the more you talk, the more it is coming out. We've heard several incidences. Roswell has nothing on this that we hear, and we're going to hear Roswell tomorrow. They're very cousins, probably. I mean, the incidents, sisters, brothers, or whatever. Yeah. But, I feel your passion and your pain. And 30 years plus is a long time. And now to be in a situation where you can't get health care because of your, it's way bigger than the two of you, and I know you know that by now. But let us continue to get the information we need to make intelligent decisions. But we're here to work. You're not just going to see us just for the day. Take our names. We'll help and work with you as well. But we're going to get it back to that Congress that you work for.
Were you ever interrogated as to the details of what you saw?
That's interesting. The only time I consciously remember being interviewed, that's a nice way to put it, at the OSI building was on, I believe it was the Monday after the incident. The incident happened on a weekend. And I believe it was Monday or Tuesday when I was called in there. I remember that, and that's writing out my statement.
Relative to the cover-up, it obviously started pretty quickly because you were told to sign an abbreviated, sanitized statement that put you far enough away from the craft that it could be interpreted as hallucination or reflections or something like that. Other than the exchange you had when that sanitized, abbreviated statement was prepared.
A little bit earlier. I think part of the problem they were drawn into the area. This object was drawn there because there was interest in the area, and the interest has to do with a top secret facility, which I later wrote security plans for and stuff at that base. which was Rendlesham Heath. It was a C3 facility, communications, and it had a building there that, and all that. But under hypnosis in 1994, it's apparently around February 1st of that year, it was noted in the hypnosis that I was taken back into the OSI building, or it could have been the wing intel, I'm not sure, and also interrogated at that point again. And that one was where I was administered sodium pentothal, which is a very graphic thing to watch on film. And additional questions were asked, and additional discoveries were made.
Why, personally, do you think there was an interest in cover-up?
Well, there's, I think, John alluded to it a little